Thank you all for coming here today. It's a cold morning, but we're here for a very important cause. I'm Wei Wan-chin. I'm the president of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance of Greater New York, and we really strongly believe in the future of the city for all Americans, not just Asian Americans, not just Italian or whatever Americans in this great city. What we have to do is protect our schools and protect the education for our children, whatever their race, religion, and background is. And we're standing here 102 years after the Continental Railroad was completed. And in that time, the Chinese came to America, worked hard in the hardest task, and after it was completed in record time, much more quickly than it was anticipated, they were not even included in the celebrations. After that, there was the Exclusion Act, the Chinese Exclusion Act continued to exclude us. And now, today, we are still facing an Exclusion Act in education. That in this day and age is wrong. Our children, every person, will not be judged on the basis of their race, but on our abilities, on our desires and commitments to work, and not be punished for that. So with that, I would like to introduce Vito LaBella, who is the president of the PTO of IS 187 McAuliffe.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you all for coming. So, as the president of this school, I'd like everyone to know that we send 2 out of 300 children, 200 out of 300 children to specialized high schools in this city. And everybody wants diversity. Everybody realizes that there's a problem. But the city's answer to the problem is bizarre. Instead of making more schools like Christa, they want to destroy screen schools in the city. That doesn't make any sense. The social justice warriors years ago got rid of gifted and talented programs in many, many communities across this city. And that is why we don't have a pipeline of children who are doing well enough to get into specialized high schools. We need specialized schools in every single district. We need gifted and talented programs, starting in kindergarten, in every school in this city. We need a school, a middle school, like Christa McAuliffe, where children can work together, feed off each other, push each other. We need a school like Christa in every single district in this city. And then we need more specialized high schools and more screen schools. I was at a symposium last night where the DOE official, Josh Wallach, said, well, I don't know if we want to have screen schools. That is insane. Instead of making everything better and building everything up, he wants to tear down what's working. He wants to tear down what's good in order to make it fair. And that's civil service mentality to the umpteenth degree. Well, we can't fix the problem, so let's just hide it by getting rid of what's making us look bad. We have to stop this nonsense, and I want to thank Nicole for supporting us and supporting the schools of New York City. Thank you very much.
Now I'd like Phillip Wong, who's been, actually I should mention that we've got a lot of parents over here, and we're really coming down over here to
Good morning, my name is Phillip Wong. I'm a parent of 3 daughters. The youngest one is a current just took the SAT exam. And thank you for coming in this weather. Thank you, Assemblymember Malliotakis, for coming and supporting us in this battle. also with the same intentions and goal to phase out and eliminate the SHSAT. We, CACA and the parents and many others have read the bill, which basically is the same bill as last year, very minor changes. And we're here today to give a simple message. Both bills do not work. They do not fix the schools of New York City. And what they're trying to do is throwing out merit and put in so-called diversity. I have taught the specialized high school this past November. Go down the hallway, there are like dozens of languages are spoken. It's very diverse. The so-called diversity problem do not exist. Now, I took the test in Brooklyn Tech back in 1981 in the auditorium. I took the SHSAT. I was the only Asian in the whole auditorium. It's the same test. Now they're calling it, oh, we have a disproportionate amount of students that doesn't look like the city and so forth. It is not the test. I took the same test back in 1981 and there was no problem. And there shouldn't be a problem right now. This test, the SHSAT, doesn't look at your race, your gender, your religion, your appearance, your wealth, your parents' connections. The specialized high schools have more poor than the screen high schools, which admit by multiple criteria. It is inaccurate and incendiary to say that the schools are segregated when the admissions are determined by a standardized test and not by biased and unjust policies that select by the skin color. The proposed changes in these bills will create a new injustice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, with extreme pleasure and gratitude, I would like to introduce someone who has been working with us, supporting us for years on this SHSAT issue, defending merit, defending the rights of all students to be judged by their merit and not by their race. Our wonderful Assemblywoman, Nicole Malliotakis. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I want to thank everyone for coming out today in the cold, because this is a very important issue, and it really is about the future of our city and making sure that we uphold the standards of our specialized schools. And all of you know that I'm not afraid to stand up to this mayor. And when he's wrong, which is quite often, I will say so. And whether it's the property tax issue, whether it's stopping him from bringing heroin injection centers into our community, or whether it's the way he has handled schools in general, because we are spending more money than ever in our school system. In fact, the state puts $10 billion into the city public school system, a record amount. And yet, things seem to be getting worse under Bill DeBlasio. We're seeing a lot of the money being used inappropriately. We see how the Renewal Schools program, over $700 million spent, it's a complete disaster, a failure. Where we hired consultants at such expensive rates to come into our schools without any success. Whether we see our school vendors getting lucrative contracts, like school lunch vendors, and giving our children food that have bones or mold in it. I mean, it's unconscionable the way our entire education system is being managed. Now, in this specific issue, I'm happy to say that I plan to play an active role because I've just been added to the Assembly Education Committee. And there is a bipartisan effort to stop the mayor from destroying our specialized schools by lowering the standards. We want to see more children at this level qualify for the gifted and
and or have opportunity to access gifted and talented programs. When we have, that's the way we fix this issue. It's not by reducing the standard of the specialized schools. It is by making sure that all our children citywide have the same access at the middle school, the elementary and middle school level, so that they too can do well on these exams. And if we have a lot of students that qualify for specialized schools, well then we need to have more specialized schools. We don't say there's too many children who are passing this exam, let's, we'll shave off 20% to give to a certain group, and then, those, we don't have room for some children now that have passed this exam. I mean, it's completely wrong. So, what I would suggest that the mayor do instead, and my colleagues in the legislature, as we look for a resolution, is look at expanding gifted and talented programs at our elementary schools and our intermediate schools. Because when we last had, in fact, I have the statistic, but give me 1 second. I have the statistic right here. Sorry about that. I should have remembered it. But for the 20-year period in the 70s and 80s that we had gifted and talented schools, gifted and talented programs in our schools, we saw half the population of Brooklyn Tech, half the students at Brooklyn Tech were Black and Latino. So it shows that it matters what we're doing in our elementary schools and our intermediate schools. So yes, we should be looking to diversify our schools, but let's do it in a way that actually makes sense and doesn't pit one community against another community. Let's invest more in our gifted and talented schools, and then if we have more children that are passing the exam, which is great, it's what we should strive for in this city, then we should have more specialized schools and programs throughout the city of New York, and that's the way we go about this. And so I'm happy to join with all of you. I thank you all for standing up for what is right, and we'll continue to push forward as we take up this issue both at Albany and City Hall. Thank you so much.
Are there any questions? I know that some of them have to run very quickly.
Yeah, real quick, what happened to the gifted and talented school 20 years ago? You said social justice. Do you have any history on that?
There is some research, and that several that in the 80s, and there's a gentleman. I would also ask your indulgence for 1 second and give you some correct information. At a symposium last night, Dr. Syed Ali, along with his associate Margaret Chin, has done research into this matter and to what happened. And according to his work, and he has two studies coming out, what's going on in New York's public schools, and another book, The Peer Effect, where he delves into this matter, is that years and years ago, they wanted to do away with tracking. And they did away with tracking all across the city. And by doing that, by stopping tracking and by not identifying and nurturing children who had the capacity to do well, who had the desire to do well, and not keeping them together so that they could feed off each other and push each other and work together and then go together into these specialized middle school programs and these specialized high schools, when they spread those children out and they took them away from being in a similar environment with similar children, that's when, instead of bringing everything else up, which is their thinking is that if you have children that are really, really doing well, instead of grouping them together, let's spread them out. And this 1 or 2 kids in each of these classrooms are going to magically bring everybody else up. But that's not the way it happens. It doesn't happen that way. And this school is...
Do you have a year of when that happened? I'm sorry.
It was in the 80s when they started doing this, or in the 90s. 80s and 90s, they started. Again, if you look at the research that I told you, these individuals, they have the research, and they can give you more specific information.
I think one great question for the Department of Education is how many schools throughout the city actually have the gifted and talented programs? So what is the number of gifted and talented programs throughout and out of how many schools, right? So I think that's the number that would really put this into perspective.
And in the borough, in the entire borough of Bronx, 0 gifted and talented programs.
So all of these children that could be identified at 4 years of age and nurtured, they're not being fed into the pipeline to make everything better and more diverse.
And I've been very critical of the mayor spending $700 million on renewal schools program, which was a way for him to hire high-priced consultants who happen to be friends of the chancellor. And to me, that money would have been better spent in investing, as we just mentioned, Bronx, because 0 gifted and talented schools. Well, then you wonder why you have an issue when you get to the high school level. And so I think that the money should have been better spent in that by investing in expanding our gifted and talented programs at the early level, so we can make sure that everyone has the ability to qualify and be in a specialized school, and that's great. We should be looking to have all specialized schools, right?
Yeah.
Specialized schools shouldn't be special. It shouldn't be something that is not common. We want to see more of these programs. We just need to do it the right way. I think what the mayor and the chancellor has proposed is wrong, and we should be looking instead at the elementary and intermediate school levels. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Reduce the standards at our specialized schools. We believe instead the mayor should be focusing on improving and expanding the gifted and talented programs at the elementary school level and intermediate school level, so more students can qualify and pass the examination required to show the aptitude for the specialized schools. So let's not do a backwards approach. We reduce the standards. We want more specialized schools in the city, and if we have more students who pass that exam, then that's a great thing, and we should celebrate that success. But in order to get there, we should be focusing on investing on our young people at the elementary school and the intermediate school. I don't think that we should be looking to meet certain quotas. What I think we should be doing is investing at the elementary school level, expanding gifted and talented programs where in some boroughs like the Bronx, you don't have them. And that is the way we actually diversify our specialized schools, by helping other children get the education necessary so they can qualify for the schools by taking specialized exams. Do you agree right now that schools aren't that much? I don't even have the diversity number, because that to me is not the issue. To me, we should, of course, we want to see our schools be more diverse and reflect the population of the city of New York. But that to me is a secondary issue. The real issue at hand here is ensuring that we have our children have the opportunities for education that get them to a position where they can pass this exam and they can qualify for that specialized school. I think what the mayor's doing is just a backwards approach. By trying to fill a quota, and opposed to investing in our schools and gifted and talented programs to lift all our students up so then they can pass the exam.
Basically what it's saying is that
it's the same answer.
It's the students
I
that
think
make specialized schools.
I think it's the same answer. I think one of the things that what our mayor did was spend $700 million on a renewal schools program.
That's what makes it special.
Nothing. It's absolutely nothing.
And the city doesn't want you to know that Success Academy schools and other charter schools
get the education they
doing
deserve.
this.
The money
They are
would have been
getting
much better
great
spent
results
if they
with
used
same
it to invest
population that the city
and bring
itself is
gifted and
failing
talented
with their
programs to schools that currently don't have them in us.
If you look at the
a
Success
large
Academy,
number.
if you look
And
at what they
instead,
do in
give
achievement
these kids the education that
and
they need,
improvement,
attention that
they are off
so
the
that
charts.
way they also
And it's the same
can
population
take
of
this
children
exam
where
and
the city
qualify.
is
But we don't
failing.
want to reduce the standards
if
of
I
the
was
school
the mayor,
because
if
these
I was the
students
chancellor,
are
I would have
highly
a
gifted
clipboard,
and they need special curriculum.
And I would try to recreate
we don't want to
whatever they're doing
We just
so
want to make
well
other children be able
in
to
the public
qualify for
schools.
that.
Instead, they tear down the charters because they don't want to admit that the city is not capable of doing what the charter is doing without a lot of reform. Why can't they do it? I think they don't want to do it. They don't want to admit that what they're doing is wrong. They don't want to do what they have. 20 plus kids in a gifted and talented class. They're doing their thing, and they're all focused, and they're all working with each other. They're all on a certain level, right? And they're pushing each other. If you take them and take 5 of those kids and put them in one class, or 5 in another class, and 5 in another class, and you disperse them, you don't have that same critical mass of children that's going to do anything. In fact, those children now are targets because they're the geeks, they're the nerds, they're the ones that are in danger of being bullied because they're smart, because they love education. So it's insane, it's crazy. You have to bring everybody up. They don't have the environment, exactly. It pulls those children down instead of bringing everybody up.